3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
All right, welcome to Roots of Reality. I'm your host, Ben Baumann, and today I'm going to talk about the history of appeasing conquerors. So one of the biggest challenges, especially throughout the 20th century and now, unfortunately, the 21st century, has been the attempts of the world to maintain some type of collective global peace on Earth. Things like how to prevent world wars. Because since World War I, this has been a top priority for nations all across the world. For example, in 1920, the League of Nations formed with the goal of preventing a second world war, only to fail and eventually be replaced by the United Nations in 1946. And the reason for the failure of the League of Nations was that countries like Italy, Japan, and Nazi Germany called their bluff. For example, in 1931, Japan would invade the northern region of China called Manchuria, and the League of Nations would condemn this invasion, but ultimately did nothing to stop it. Thus, Japan would go on to help start World War II and invade the rest of China, Vietnam, Thailand, the Philippines, Papua New Guinea, Singapore, and more, as well as attack the American state of Hawaii. And then there is Italy, who in 1935 invaded Ethiopia. And once again, the League of Nations proved to be too weak to do anything, and Italy would become another major player in starting World War II, going on to invade Albania, France, Kenya, Sudan, Greece, Egypt, and Yugoslavia. And finally, we have Nazi Germany, who in 1938 threatened to invade the German-speaking region of Czechoslovakia, causing the League of Nations to once again appease another world conqueror by agreeing to force Czechoslovakia to give up territory, just to make Nazi Germany happy, hoping that Nazi Germany would not go on to try to conquer other countries. Later, of course, though, Nazi Germany would go on to try to conquer other countries and become the third major enemy of World War II, invading Poland, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, the Soviet Union, France, Belgium, Norway, Denmark, Egypt, Greece, Yugoslavia, and Hungary. So here we are today in 2024, and we find ourselves in a situation where the potential for another world war is closer than it has been in a long time. This time, though, we have countries like Russia, who has already invaded Georgia back in 2008 without severe punishment, and now all of Ukraine. And while Europe and the United States have started to waver about how much they should continue to fund Ukraine and help support them in their defense of their own country, meanwhile, nations like China are considering to invade Taiwan, as well as smaller nations like Azerbaijan are looking at invading Armenia. So the question for the world today is, will we repeat the mistakes of the past, or will we stand up to those seeking to conquer other countries? Obviously, everybody is afraid of World War III. Ironically, though, as history has shown, if conquerors are successful, they oftentimes just want more. And this is potentially how World War III occurs, because they will only continue to conquer until they are actually forced to stop. Just ask Hitler, Mussolini, and Hirohito. Thus, Americans and Europeans have a choice to make. Fund Ukraine now to prevent Russia from completely taking over Ukraine and potentially launching future invasions, as well as inspiring others looking at expanding their territory to invade other countries. Or alternatively, play the game of attempted isolationism, which often does not turn out well. Just look at the United States, who tried to remain isolated in World War II and would later then get attacked by the Japanese at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Now, some Americans, for example, will argue that the U.S. government cannot afford to fund Ukraine. However, in reality, if you were to actually look at the percentage of the defense budget being used towards Ukraine, it really is a small number. And so as a result, it ultimately costs the U.S. government almost nothing to help Ukraine. Despite what some politicians and political commentators like to falsely claim, obviously we know today Politics is often filled with lies and deception, so that should not be unusual. And because of the United States political situation right now, where the country is incredibly divided on many issues, not just Ukraine, but as a result, the future of Ukraine could very likely be decided by the next presidential election. For example, former President Donald Trump seems pretty keen on improving America's relationship with Russia at the expense of Ukraine, despite Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In fact, Donald Trump has also actively promoted the idea of getting the United States out of NATO, which would essentially be a green light for Russia and any other nation looking to conquer. So ultimately, we live in historical times, but we control our destiny because democracies all over the world have a choice to make. Do we learn from the lessons of the past, or do we look to repeat them in the future? So hopefully we make the right decision and prevent a situation where Russia, will take Ukraine and then look at maybe Poland or some other countries that are part of NATO and expand their war. But in a globalized society, an election in the United States can oftentimes tip the balance of world events, given how much of a role the United States has served in the world after World War II and preventing a World War III, because many people underestimate just how many countries would certainly look to expand their influence in the world if the United States takes a step back, as many Americans would like right now, including high-profile politicians like Donald Trump. So, as always, remember, billions of years led to you, so make the most of it.